Good afternoon, Comic-Con 2012. Welcome, everybody. My name is Brian Ward, and for the past 7 months, I've had the great honor and privilege of producing not one, but 7 complete seasons of the Power Rangers on DVD for Shout Factory and Saban brands. Basically, it's been a labor of love, not just for myself, but for many of you who came out of the woodwork to lend your expertise, your knowledge, your support, and God knows your input into helping make these collections as awesome as they could possibly be. And to thank you, we decided to take this opportunity to kick off the 20th anniversary just a little bit early. In 1984, while on a business trip to Japan, Mr. Chaim Saban happened to turn on the television and became mesmerized by a television series about 5 very brightly dressed teenagers fighting off monsters made of foam and rubber with traditional martial arts, weapons of all sorts, and giant mechanized vehicles that, when used together, create an even bigger giant robot. And he was absolutely obsessed, and who wouldn't be? It took 9 years, but eventually in 1993, Fox Kids aired Day of the Dumpster, the premiere episode, first of what was then only 40 ordered episodes of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And now, 19 years later, almost 20 years later, in 2012, we're sitting in this room honoring what is, I wouldn't even say arguably, what is the most successful action series on children's television history. Joining us for the panel and the celebration are some of the folks that were instrumental in making it the success it was, the success it still is, and the success it will be tomorrow, next year, and the next 20 years. Starting with this gentleman, he was the marketing guru who brought in the, sort of oversaw the Power Rangers fandomonium of 1993. Now he's the president of Saban Brands, Mr. Eli Deckel. With him, we have one of the people charged with the Herculean task of bringing that original series from Japan and making it something that American audiences and what eventually became worldwide audiences all fell in love with. He was one of the writers, supervising producer, a jack of all trades, supervising producer, writer, director, and of course the voice of Saba, Mr. Tony Oliver. Without a doubt, the hippest of the original Rangers, he is the father of hip-hop keto, Mr. Walter Emmanuel Jones. The next gentleman needs no introduction, but I'll give him one anyway. He was one half of the comic duo known as Bulk and Skull. Later went on to even direct episodes of Power Rangers, and now, for the most recent seasons, Samurai and Super Samurai, has even reprised his role of Bulk, Mr. Paul Schreier. Has your weapon been properly checked, sir? The next gentleman you would recognize, you can see him every Saturday morning at noon, 11 Central, on Nickelodeon. He has captured the imaginations and the hearts of many. Your current Red Ranger, Jaden, Mr. Alex Hartman. go ahead and get started. Actually, we'll start with Ellie and Tony, since you guys were there from the very beginning. For starters, describe Haim Saban's passion for this project. I've heard over the course of the last 7 months this can be incredibly infectious. You guys were there from the beginning. Describe his passion for it, and moreover, your thoughts as you were first being told this idea.
When he first brought the idea, I was brought up to his office with Ellen Levy-Sarnoff, who was the director of programming at the time. And he showed us this footage of these strange guys in spandex jumping around and fighting latex monsters. And he pretty much said that, you know, we want to take this and turn it into an American TV show and use all the monster footage and shoot a show around them. And my thoughts were, you're out of your flippin' mind, basically. But he said, do it. So we did, because I worked for him and I like my job. And it just kind of grew from there. When we saw we actually took the footage and just cut away anything that wasn't that wasn't just the Rangers or the Zords, and threw a rock and roll track and put it up in front of some kids, and they went completely ape over it. And so at that point, I kind of started believing it and in it too. But Haim was the driving force behind the original creation of the show, and pretty intense about it. So yeah.
At that same time, those early tapes that were edited, we would sit around in a conference room, and he'd bring in a new version of that tape, all very excited, and a new cut, and we got new footage and different audio track, and then we started inserting some American kids into the mix, and you could see it start to take shape. But even in its early form, even when it went to broadcast in those first few years, it was still rough and tumble show, and you can that's part of the charm of the show, is that you could see that.
Well, we were making it up as we went along, so.
Yeah. It was a new format. Today you may think of it as a mashup, but back then it was pretty revolutionary. And what was really quite surprising to all of us was the fact that it took so long to get a television network to buy into the idea, because when Margaret Lesh at the Fox Kids Network finally took a shot and said, yeah, okay, we'll try that, it became an instant hit and globally. And it's 20 years later, and look at this room. It's quite remarkable. Thanks for being here.
So what is it about that time period that made this the right time, as opposed to the 10 years that he had been, in his words, schlepping the show, up to that point?
Well, I think it had to do with what was on at the time. Mostly, your choices were another popular show that Saban was doing at the time was X-Men. So you had X-Men with yeah, thanks. Yeah, good. It's all right for X-Men. With kind of flawed, angst-filled heroes, or you had, little clowns of Happy Town. So there wasn't anything kind of in between, and children's TV had kind of started to get stale at the time. And along comes this new kids network, Fox Kids, and they were looking for a new way, a new path, something that could capture kids' imaginations. And so I think all kind of conspired to make the time just right for a show like this.
And the fact that it was a live-action show. It had the sensibilities of an animated cartoon, but it was live action and larger than life special effects and stranger than ever fantasy and sillier than ever monsters, and that combination really worked.
And also these guys.
Yes.
Made it work.
You guys remember? Check 1, 2. Hi. Oh, there we are. Hi. What's up, guys? How you doing? Anybody know what time it is? That's right, it's Morphin time. Yeah, well, they brought us on to originate the cast, and I think we did a pretty good job. What do you think?
Talk about that process. You guys up to this point, animation really had sort of dominated children's television for decades. Now you guys are being brought in to audition for these roles of this live action series. Talk about the audition process, how you guys ended up getting those parts.
Well, they saw quite a few people for Power Rangers. They've been auditioning for quite a while, in fact, and they whittled it down from like 800 people to 5 cast of 5 to 3 cast of 5, and you know, between the auditioning process that we had to do, we had to act, we had to dance, we had to do gymnastics, we had to do martial arts, we had to do a little bit of everything, and not everybody's capable of doing that. So they saw a lot of talented people, and they brought us together, and I think what ended making the cast what it was the chemistry. We all had this great chemistry. We became friends, and we all supported each other throughout the audition process, and in the end, we ended up with this nice piece of art that became the Power Rangers.
Paul, Bulk went through quite a bit of an evolutionary stage as well. Talk about, you know, the Bulk that was there at the beginning versus what eventually was seen on Day of the Dumpster.
Sure, man. Well, I mean, 1, 2. Hello. Hello. So you guys, you know, when you get an audition as an actor, I mean, you show up and you're like, oh, I want to get it so badly, and sometimes you show up too early, and they give you dirty looks. And other times you show up too early, and the writer-producer says, oh, thank God, I don't have to play fat guy number 5. Tony said, so you stand here, and you take a hit from this guy, and we were in a conference room with all the chairs moved to the side. So we were rehearsing a scene from the famous bowling alley promo pilot. And unfortunately for all of the on-time fat guys, sorry. I could take a hit, I could fall, and I could, you know. So that was the original, you know, that was the original appearance of my character. But later, our producers, Jonathan Sahor and of course Ronnie and Shuki and Chaim, they took a look at the archetype that I was kind of wanting to fulfill, which was your classic, you know, big bully guy. And then they said, we'll get a skinny guy for the bully guy. And then that kind of started a ballistic trajectory of dorkish fun.
And we would be remiss if we didn't talk about your cohort, your partner in crime.
Oh yeah, Jason Andrew Narvey. That's the guy that decided he had to go to college. college. And you know, in fact, he stayed for 2 years for me. He hung around for a long time, and then one day he said, Ollie, I'm sorry, but I gotta go. And I was like, it's okay. The in-space season will be awesome with me and Professor Phenomenus on the Terraventure. Dude, hey, I don't.
What is this?
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jason Andrew Narvey, Eugene Skolovich. Everything is better. Everything is better with Bulk and Skull on it.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, Dr. Jason Narvey. What have you been up to lately?
Oh, there we go. Hello. Crashing panels at Comic-Con. I'm running a theater department at Concordia University, Chicago. Thank you very much.
I'm playing Bulk again.
Let's talk about that day you two met. Was the chemistry instantaneous, and how did that translate later to the screen?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's funny because I got the call back when I got the original audition. As I heard Paulie saying, you know, we were kind of replaying the actual pilot. And so when I got it, they wanted me to improvise. I improvised, I said, these guys are gonna remember me whether they hate me or not. Boom! They got the call back. So the next day, they paired me up with Paulie on the set. They don't tell me he's already in costume and in character. The first thing I thought, I looked at him, I'm like, oh, this guy, I hate him. I absolutely hate him. But the moment he came up, he came with that giant ham hock of a hand of his. And he slapped it in my hand, he goes, hey, I'm Paulie, how you doing? Let's get to work. And we started working, simple as that. So the chemistry was almost instantaneous. And we, from that moment forward, started working and working and working and sticking and sticking and sticking.
I like to delude myself into thinking that I actually made a decision in the casting of Jason, but the truth is, Jason is a punk. He thinks about kicking old ladies on the street, even when he doesn't do it.
Are there any old ladies in the house? I'll visit you later.
So it was almost like, remember that thing, the biodome, where they're honest, we are not coming out of here for 2 years, and we're gonna cook, we can't breathe in here, help us. That's what it was like. They put us together and they just let it cook, and thankfully so, because Tony was so wonderful with us and let us go, and then he would pull us back a little bit and take us back from the edge of being too mean, right, which was our journey. So all in all, I love Bulk and Skull, and what couldn't use more Bulk and Skull?
So Tony, you had a particular love for these two characters. What was different about writing for the two of them?
Well, we weren't with them. We weren't constrained by the Japanese footage and the story, so we really could take them wherever we wanted to take them. And what was great about them was that because they weren't central to the whatever plot Rita Repulsa had happening that day, we could really let them go. So we would be able to write a scene that we thought was funny, and then give it to them, and they would actually make it funny, rather than depending on what we wrote, because what they did was actually much better than what we wrote. But also, let's face it, they were the only characters in this show that had their own theme song. And I just love the freedom as a writer and a producer. I just love the freedom that we had with them in order to kind of spice up and give Power Rangers that little edge of comedy that I think really rounded it out and made it a show that kids like a lot.
So Alex, you were what, 3 when this show premiered? Is that about?
Yeah, you get to talk now? Do I get to say something?
Yeah, you get to say. Well, how did you grow up with the series?
1, 2. Yes, I have a horde of microphones now. Yeah, I was 3 years old when the original came out.
Did you grow up with Incarnation after Incarnation?
I absolutely grew up with them. I feel like I'm splitting up the dynamic duo over here, by the way. I feel a little awkward, like they're kind of doing this thing across me, but
but now you're the bridge between the two originals, and you get to work with Paul now. So
exactly. It's been a huge honor. I mean, like I grew up watching these 3 guys, so I mean, for me being on this panel right now is I never thought that this would happen to myself. Like as a kid you play along, like I had sticks and I was fighting bushes with my friends and all that stuff. Oh, thanks, Paulie. Yeah, that's a dream come true there, huh? Yeah. Being molested by Paul is a dream come true.
Who's eating bacon in
who
here?
hasn't been? Talk a little bit about sort of the legacy. For you, you come into an audition where this is a long-lived series. You've got a little bit of different perspective on it. What was that like for you as you came into the show?
It wasn't during the audition process, it wasn't quite as stressful as I would have thought. During the audition process, I was very relaxed, and it wasn't nearly as intense as what Walter was saying. Like, we didn't have to do gymnastics or any of that kind of thing. I mean, I brought a weapon into the audition just to showcase some of my martial arts skills, but...
And that's how you got the part.
By putting a hole in the wall, which I did do. I don't know why they hired me, actually.
Did they make you pay for it?
No, they didn't.
What?
You kids get all the
But once I finally got news that I would be the Red Ranger, it kind of hit me like the weight that was on my shoulders to lead the series and make it my own, but also kind of throw back to what Mighty Morphin was for me as a kid. So that was what I really wanted to focus on doing Power Rangers, was what I wanted it to be as a kid and what I enjoyed about the show as a kid, and that's what I brought into the show during filming.
So whether it was in 1993 or even just a couple of years ago, for all of you, how did your lives change for the original guys, the day you realized that this was a hit, like this was going to be, huge, and then Alex, the day that you got to be Jade and the Red Ranger, talk about how this has impacted your lives.
Well, LA is a lot easier to manage when you have a giant lion Zord to drive around with. You just crush cars on the freeway. It's kind of nice.
Very cool.
I have to say that when Power Rangers became what it became, I mean, nobody expected it to do what it did. I mean, it started even before the show aired. We were walking down Jason Geiger, or also known as Austin St. John, who was Red Ranger, the original Red Ranger. He was my roommate. He was my roommate back in the day. There you go. And we were walking down through Venice Beach, and somebody stopped us and was like, "Hey, you guys are the Power Rangers." And the show hadn't even aired yet. And we're like, "How do you know who we are? It hasn't aired." And they're like, "I just bought your toy last week. Your name is your face is on the box." And I was like, wow, I hadn't even seen it myself. So I think at that point, I knew that we were involved in something that was so much bigger than I ever thought it would be. And the fact that it was in 40 countries around the world, and I've been to Dominican Republic and Africa and all these different places, and they recognize me there. They're like, "You are the Power Ranger." I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. You know what I'm saying?
The funny thing about Bulk and Skull is on RTL in Germany in the 90s, they would dub it into German, of course. And the fat guy had the squeaky voice, and the skinny guy had the deep voice. So that goes a long way to explaining the German sensibilities with humor.
Yeah, scoffing time.
To answer the
Yeah,
question,
boy.
Guy, it was no different than Jason or I ever were, just being ourselves. They just put cameras in front of us and made us say certain things.
Yeah. Yeah, it toned us down once they rolled the cameras. You said. You know, I mean, you talk about a change in life. Let me ask anyone here that's around the age of 18. I want you to picture something 20 years from now. Can you picture it? Neither could we. And here we are still chatting about it. Someone over there asking us questions about it.
What does that mean for me in 20 years? What's going to happen to me?
It's whatever you want it to be.
So Ellie, talk about you helped create this with the pandemonium. Talk about the fans a little bit and how you ended up, how did your job change from marketing a series that admittedly a lot of people weren't sure it was going to work to suddenly this is a phenomenon?
Well, we knew that it was different, and we knew that this was either going to be really a success or an utter failure, in which case we'd go back to our drawing boards and try something else. You talked about the fact that we had a hit on the air at that time, X-Men. During that time, Saban was producing all the Marvel animation during the 90s, and it was our first #1 show, was X-Men, and it helped Fox Kids to become a predominant leader in kids programming, and then Power Rangers followed it a few months later. I remember distinctly before the launch of Power Rangers, we agreed to go out on a limb and make bombastic claims that this was going to change the future of the world, this show. And so our campaign at the beginning was Power Rangers are coming to save the world, and children's television will never be the same again. And we actually bought a billboard on Sunset Strip, and it on one side of the billboard had the X-Men, and which was #1 today. It's a giant billboard. And then on the other side of the billboard, it had the Power Rangers, which no one had really seen outside of Japan, and it said #1 tomorrow. And so we went into it thinking we're all in, and we're gonna tell the world that they're gonna love it. And fortunately, it lived up to that. And what's really amazing, you talked about how 20 years later. And how, Alex, you had wanted to imbue some of the things you loved about the show in the new show. And when we set about to produce Power Rangers Samurai and bring, hopefully, the magic of the show back to its former glory, we really studied Mighty Morphin. We studied those years, and we watched a lot of episodes, and we looked at old press clippings, and we tried to understand what were those elements that made it so unique and so compelling and so viral. At that time, that meant a disease. Today, it's very different. and we worked hard to try and imbue some of that in the new show. So the action, certainly, it was, certainly something that hadn't stood out from other things on television. The level of action in the new show is even more amped than ever. The humor, some of the silliness, the heart, and a lot of really intense action. And weaving that together, bringing back some of the original team with Jonathan and others, some of the early writers that were involved with us. We really, and we listened to fans. We listened to a lot of you who are active on chat rooms and websites, and we were actually kind of amazed that after being detached from the property for almost a decade, there was this viral conversation, this active, healthy dialogue of fans talking about life, but what brought them together was Power Rangers. And I must say that today, as we're planning the future seasons of Power Rangers, the interaction we have by virtue of things like Comic-Con, by virtue of the fan sites, by virtue of social media, is really helping us to guide the future of this wonderful, wonderful show. So thank you for that.
These guys out here, they're the same ones who 20 years ago convinced their parents to shut down the 101 freeway. Just to see a peek of their favorite Rangers at Universal City or Studios. They're the same fans who, as soon as the internet became, a household name, they jumped online and started talking about the series, the franchise. And hopefully, though, many of them I already know are the same ones who have children that they've raised on Power Rangers now. And even a fan-created and driven convention of their own, strictly for Power Rangers, called Power Morphicon. Yeah! Talk about these guys, your relationships, and don't hold back. You let them have it. Talk about the importance of these guys a little bit, just in your day-to-day.
Well, without them, we don't exist in terms of a show or anything at all. So you are what makes us able to do what it is we love to do. And so I can speak for all of us that we are really grateful for that. I think going back to Universal, that was the first time I actually saw that kind of fandom ever. We were supposed to be doing a little tiny show at the Feifel Theater, I think is what it was called at the time, that held 1,000 people. We were going to do 6 performances. The first one was going to be for press, and it was predominantly to announce that we were part of Dare America. I think that's what it was for. And we finished our final rehearsal, because I directed that show. And we finished our final rehearsal, and I get a call from the Universal Studios president or marketing guy. Says, could you stick around and go ride a ride and come back? So I did, and I went to their office, and they said, well, we've just gotten over 35,000 phone calls, so we're going to move you to the Universal Amphitheater. So we had to show up the next morning at 5 a.m. to completely redirect and restage the whole thing, because we had pyrotechnics, I had people flying in, all this stuff. And as I arrived at 5 in the morning, there was already about 300 people in line to get into the park. We did our first show, then we had to do a little press thing, and we're walking out, and there's this enormous, there must have been 10,000 people in line, and we're having to do the whole Beatles run, with us escorting them, with people screaming and hollering so we could get them to their press thing.
Nobody helping Bulk and Skull. No one helping us. Hey! Help the Power Rangers.
Yes.
Go out there and throw yourself
We're like dressed up as like Universal groundskeeping.
Come on, take one for the team.
So at the end of the second show, I was downstairs backstage, and this man and the president of Universal was there, and Chaim was there, and their assistant came up and said, I can't believe this, they had to close down the Hollywood freeway. They had to close down 3 exits because it had backed up so much. 50,000 people showed up that day. And I was out in the audience when they were doing their performances, and it was like going like the 60s with the Beatles concerts, with little girls standing up and screaming and crying, Tommy! Things like that. It was the most amazing day of my life to be involved in something that
But
had
you know what,
that
with
kind
the,
of
with
power.
the politics of scale, with our Netflix thing, where we are streaming every episode on Netflix for you, with Shout Factory and DVDs coming out, that audience that Tony's talking about is without a doubt 10 times bigger than it was for us that day. It's exponentially bigger right now because of you.
And I have to say this too. This is the first thing that I thought of. Okay, don't get me wrong. The network fully backed us, and Saban had absolute faith in this. I don't think the rest of the world did. We were a strange superhero group, right? From Japan. My God, superheroes should be from American. They should be a man probably in his 30s, and he has to save everyone else because everyone else is helpless. And yet we brought girls, we brought people of all races and ethnicities, all backgrounds to the forefront. And you guys responded to that. To this day, how many superheroes are like that? So it endured because it spoke to something that you guys found. You guys found something in Power Rangers that made it special. We didn't, okay? So we really do owe it to you on a deep, deep level, if you know what I'm saying.
Stop doing this.
It's like I'm pushing them back. Everybody get back now. You're encroaching on my personal space, which ends right there at the front.
Good job.
You got it.
Thank you. Sorry about Dr. Narby.
You got to keep him in check. This is why you live in Chicago now.
Why did they recast you? Why?
So, Ellie, what do you see happening tomorrow for Power Rangers and for the next 20 years? What does the future hold?
Well, a lot more. A lot more to come on the Power Rangers. We announced today that Saban Brands is launching a new Saturday morning kids television block. It will launch on August 25th on the CW channel, CW network around the country, so check your local listings of where CW airs. And every Saturday morning from 7 a.m. to noon, Saban is going to bring you the most action-packed Saturday morning block ever. And leading off the schedule will be the return of one of our most exciting Power Rangers series ever, Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. Will be airing on this block. And as we approach 2013, Power Rangers enters the 20th year. And we have a whole range of celebrations and events and new content coming out that will be celebrating the 20th anniversary and, more importantly, gearing all of us up for the next 10 and 20 years. So we have no end in sight. If anything, you all here and those like you in over 150 countries now, 150 countries are airing Power Rangers, are telling us that you want a lot more. So we have, even though we produced 800 episodes since the beginning, making it one of the largest libraries in all of television, we see no end in sight. We're going for a lot more, and 2013 will live up to that and beyond.
So I'm not sure exactly how much time we've got, but we wanted to give an opportunity to a couple of people to maybe ask a question or two. There's a mic here, there. Run. So we'll actually start, yeah.
This question's for Paul and Jason. You guys have been playing Vulcan Skull for years, and I was just wondering, how did you go about developing the characters with going from a high school bully to a police officer to chimpanzees?
How do we develop that? We went kicking and screaming all the way through.
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna give you a Power Rangers lexicon. Anytime you see a joke on Power Rangers and Skull deadpans, he's angry.
Yeah, I can't believe they're making me say this.
So how you do it is you're reactive, right? We have to look at the scene. We have to think about what are we doing, what do we want, what's important. You know, it's acting 101, but it's also committing wholly to being a chimpanzee.
And I mean, if you start with your general comedy duo rubric, okay, it's two guys against the world that is against them.
Yep.
Okay, they are constantly baffled and confused. So the bigger and more important Bulk and Skull think they are, the more confused they really are.
Totally. We were talking about this earlier. So that's it. I mean, we are not, there's no great plan here, guys. We're looking at the script and we're trying to make it work in the context of the characters. And make it look real, like we care, like we mean it. Because we do. And we are. Thanks.
First off, a million more props to all y'all, and especially to Walter and Bulk and Skull. I love y'all. So now this question is for the new generation Red Ranger, Alex Hartman.
Hello.
Okay, now the question is, 10 years from now, if Saban ever came back to you to reprise the role of Jaden, would you gladly take it?
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. I mean, no matter what happens to me in the future, no matter where I go, if I do huge blockbuster movies or if I never act again, I will always say that I am a part of the Power Ranger franchise, and that's something that holds really close to my heart. So if they do ever ask me in the future, I will absolutely come back.
Right on, man.
Oh, I've got a little one.
Ooh,
A little red.
I like the mask. You're looking good.
Aren't you a little short for a Red Ranger?
Do you guys ever think about making a girl Red Ranger?
The answer is yes.
Hi. Like I told Paul last year when he was here with Samurai, Skull, thank you for coming to Comic-Con!
I've been wanting to see you for a long time. You in particular, just you and me.
Thank you.
Yo, you're from Argentina.
No, I'm from Mexico.
Oh, make me look bad.
My question is for Walter. How did you come out with Hip Hop Keto?
Hello. Hi. Oh, there we go. Hip Hop Keto was just a kind of a creation that, I mean, they were looking for somebody that could do martial arts and hip hop, so I had to put it together. And just creatively, it was just something that I took from my experiences as a dancer and my experience as a martial artist and a gymnast and started creating. I think in the beginning it was a little more, it wasn't as advanced as it got as we gone through the seasons, because towards the end I was getting Jackie Chan with it. I was like, yeah, hey, I'm going to do a flip over this putty and I'm going to kick this putty and do this, and it got to be a lot of fun. It was probably one of the most exciting things I did on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I think that's a wonderful opportunity to clear up a misunderstanding. Some people believe that the Power Rangers were incapable of doing their own stunts once those helmets were on. No. And Walter, he was more apt than others. They just didn't do it all the time for time constraints.
And for insurance reasons.
And for insurance purposes as well. Because do you want to ruin that beautiful face? Show them the beautiful face you have. Look at that beautiful face. What if something happened to that?
These guys are a different story, though. They'll mess them up all day, every day.
Like a train wreck right here. I don't like him very much.
I gotta say though, these guys are really tough themselves. I mean, Bulk and Skull, they put off stunts every show. Every show, they had to fall off of something or get hit by something or whatever. And I remember an episode that I had with Paul where we had to challenge each other. And I had to do like several turns, and he did several turns, and then I had to do a handstand on top of the bar, and he went to do it and flipped over. But those things, for a guy this big,
For a guy like, whoa.
that guy's so challenged in the skinny way. Hey, he really put it down, and he did. I give it up for you, Paul. Very talented dude. Very talented. Both of these guys.
You know we all did our own stuff for years, right? So thank you.
In about 30 minutes, we're going to have a signing with these guys. Come down and join us, and these guys as well. Everybody, have a great convention.